Welcome back to a new video. It is time to set up my bullet journal for March. I do apologize if you can hear purring in the background. I am being sat upon by a cat and he is quite loud. Anyways, I have this floral set from Sterling Ink. This was the February 2026 subscription package. I will link this down below, but I don't think you can get this one as it stands right now. You have to sign up for the subscription and get next month's. Anyways, I have this from February because I tend to set these up well in advance, and the subscription came after I set up my February journal, so I thought I would use it for March. However, it is very brightly colored. There are a lot of lovely jewel tones in it, and I am someone who prefers a quieter aesthetic, so I am pairing this with some paper that I got just from Amazon, some text paper. It doesn't mean anything, and I'm going to subdue the colors just a little bit. I also am using a washi tape from Archer and Olive. This was the quarterly subscription box for January, December, whenever the last one came, and I will link Archer and Olive down below, but I don't know if you can get this washi tape outside of the subscription box either, so we shall see. Anyways, I have a few more other little bits and bobs here, some stickers I got from Paper World in a sample pack, and just some pens and things, so nothing terribly exciting, but I like all of the little things together, all of these colors and things. They feel very much sort of a light academia, vintage, explorer-y type vibe, and I think it's very fun. Here I'm just setting up my cover page. This is where you will see the most of the Sterling Ink items. A lot of the jewel tones will end up here. In further pages it'll be a bit more subdued, a bit more vintage style as opposed to the bright colors, but I think it looks really nice regardless. Just going in and arranging some silicone stamps on an acrylic pad so I can do the title without having to break out my pen, which I do anyways later, but I wanted the stamps. Stamps are fun. Of course, after I stamped it, I realized that I meant to have the stagger going the other direction, but whatever. Now we're going to get into the calendar spread. This is something that I have found to be somewhat useful. I have a separate physical calendar that I keep for events and activities and things that are happening on every day, so I don't tend to write down any specific information in this. This is mostly my planning journal, so this is more for remembering what day it is than anything. I will occasionally write down something like, oh, my newsletter goes out this day, or I have a book launch this day, but I tend to save most of that for my weekly spreads later on. Still, I find this visually useful because I can look at the calendar and know how many days I have to do something, or when certain things are happening. But I tend to keep most of the information in my other calendar. I apologize if you cannot see these stickers. They are very small. It's just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. I don't love the functional stickers from the Sterling Ink pack. I think they're fine, but not particularly interesting. Still, I have them. I might as well use them. These papers, these dictionary, vintage dictionary pages are doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this theme. They are adding that sepia color while also lending a lot of visual weight to the pages, and I add the stickers and such on top, but a lot of the theme comes from these pages and the green washi tape that you will see very shortly. Which begs the question, what am I going to do with the rest of my stickers? I have quite a few left, and I try to use as many as I can for a theme if I'm going to do something like this. But with this one, because I went outside of their subscription pack, I ended up with some left over, and I'm not sure what I'll do with them. I guess I could use them for my reading journal. I'll figure something out, even if it's just junk journaling. But I will say that the jewel tones in this one are not my most favorite. I'm definitely a quieter sort of a visual person. The next spread that I'm putting together is my content planner. Because I have to do all of my social media marketing a month in advance, this is extremely useful and, in fact, I would say essential for my business. I plan everything out. I mark when I've taken pictures, when I've taken videos, and what the themes are, and then I will mark when I have my YouTube videos scheduled or when I need to have them done by. And then I also keep track of my reader group that I admin. This is the Order of the Dragon Forged, a dragon-themed reader group for indie fantasy books, and I schedule posts, I plan things well in advance, and make sure that I have everything sorted, and this makes my day-to-day life so much easier, just astonishingly different. Now I am breaking out a calligraphy dip pen. I have recently started trying to learn calligraphy. I've been writing in cursive pretty much my whole life, so this is just kind of a natural step, and I got a subscription box and they sent this lovely dip pen, and so I am trying it out. This is not any particular lettering style, this is just my usual handwriting done with a calligraphy pen, and I think it looks delightful. In fact, I really enjoy this so much that I ordered a fountain pen so that I can do this in a place where I don't necessarily have a inkwell at hand, which is useful because I tend to do a lot of things in places where I don't have inkwells at hand. So I really love how that looks. I will let you know how my calligraphy journey progresses. Actually, you'll probably see a lot of it in these videos. One of the things that can be a little difficult when working with a page of text is that there is a certain way the text has to go. It has to be read kind of left to right, up and down, and so I can't turn the paper sideways without it looking very strange. So a lot of these pages are going to end up having the text either on the sides or on the top and bottom, so that the text is actually readable, even though I have no intention of reading any of this stuff. It's just old dictionary entries. but it does limit the way to decorate these pages just a little bit. Not massively, but a little bit. Alright, next up in my spread planning is the word count tracker. This is super helpful given that I am a writer and like to keep track of what projects I'm working on and how many words I have done in a day. Generally, I have 2 to 3 projects that I'm working on at any given time, and some of these are handwritten, and so I mark the pages down at the bottom, and some of them are typed, where I will do a bar graph of the words up at the top. And this just helps me keep visual track of all of my projects. One thing about working with dip pens is that the ink does tend to get everywhere. Actually, this year my writing has been going pretty well, I would say. I've done a lot more in my daily word count than I have in 2025, and I don't write every day. I have, editing clients that I work with and videos to film, and I take weekends because I like my weekends. But when I do write, I have done more in a day than I have previously, and I don't know if that's just I'm really enjoying the projects that I'm working on, or if there's some sort of mental block that I've kind of gotten over, but I'm really pleased to have made the progress that I'm making. And the only downside is that sometimes I exceed the number of spaces I have for my word count tracker, so I may have to adjust it. I'll let you know next month. Moving on, these are 2 different spreads. The one on the left is my habit tracker, and the one on the right is memory keeping. The habit tracker, I track 3 to 4 habits every month, usually writing, reading, how much movement I'm doing, and so on. Occasionally I'll have a 4th thing, but 3 is usually my average. And then because I don't need as much space for that, I can do the memory keeping spread on the right hand side of the page, which I think is really fun. It just adds a little bit of extra je ne sais quoi every month, and I really like going back and looking at the things that I did, which is also useful because I'm incentivized to fill up my memory keeping spread, which means I actually have to leave the house on occasion, which I rarely do. I'm working on it. I can fill the memory keeping spread up a bit more because it is going to be covered up by pictures and memorabilia and things, so I'm not too worried about the page being half covered. Alrighty, this is the last of the functional spreads before we get into the weekly planning. And this is my monthly reading page. This is where I keep track of my TBR stats, how many books I've read in a month, how many books I acquired in a month, what books I acquired in a month, and how many books I've read. And this then I can use to fill out my reading journal later on. And I love writing all of these little details down. It is so much fun to keep track of these things. And I love watching the books read section get filled in. Alrighty, time for the weekly spreads. I have only just started using weeklies this year, and I have found them incredibly useful. I do all of my daily to-do lists here. If I have a task that I need to complete on Monday every week, then I write that down and make sure I check it off. And checking off and scribbling out the list is so satisfying. So I started off with this layout where I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on the top, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday on the bottom with a little decorative corner, and I have no desire to change it. I think it works great. I know there are lots of other weekly styles out there, but this works exceptionally well for me, and so I'm going to continue it, and I love the little pop of decoration in the bottom. It's so fun. Now, because all of these weeklies are laid out the same, I set them up separately and am happy to go back and show you the final result. Starting with the cover page, which I love, and the calendar spread, very useful, but perhaps not as interesting. Into the content planner, which I think is very nice and simple. The word count page, which I will be thrilled to get to use. My habit tracker and memory keepers. My reading stats. And finally, my weekly spreads. I have really enjoyed putting together this sort of light academia style, and I'm curious whether you would have kept the jewel tones by themselves or if you would have gone a little bit more dark in your academia style. Do let me know, and I shall wish you a most wonderful day, and I will see you next time.